Welcome
Good
to
start.
Let's Talk Procurement, the only show you need to master the art of procurement. Let's go. Back in the studio with Luke 10. How are you doing, Luke? Everything all right?
Good. Could be worse. That's our podcast slogan, isn't it?
It was one you've designed, yeah. Could be worse.
Could be worse. I think it's kind of initially not wholesome, but the more you think about it, it is wholesome. So going with it, we should kind of get it famous so that we can put it on billboards and people will stop us in the street and say, "How are you? Could be worse."
Get some could be worse t-shirts out there.
Yeah, I like that. As long as we make commission on it.
Maybe we could sell German sausages. Could be worse.
Could be worst.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
A little side hustle for the pod.
Talking about our side hustles, someone's got in touch to the listener email, which is
2lukes1sip@gmail.com. That's 2lukes1sip@gmail.com.
brilliant. So James has got in touch on that email address, and James has kind of spoke to us about something that we offered a while ago. Do you remember we offered to be a marketplace?
Yes. Did we?
For SIPS books?
Oh yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. So our plan was pretty much perfect, other than the fact that we didn't have anywhere to store the books. We didn't have any books, and we didn't have anyone to give the books to.
Yeah, I mean, we
weren't
going
to offer
listeners.
Yeah, we weren't going to offer any money to people who gave the books in either. I mean, apart from that, it was a soundproof plan, to be honest.
So what's James kind of said about it then?
So James has said that he is a web designer, aka a nerd. So he's offered to design us a website where people can go on and trade the SIPS books. And it's just like to remind the listeners that it is free for you to give your books away. We don't charge for you to give your books. For the people buying books, we will sell them at £1 less than normal retail price. Where that money kind of goes in the interim, it's maybe just leave that to us. We'll think about it and decide if we want to let you know.
So you know how you referred to me in a previous episode as the kind of, what was it, the strong, handsome bodyguard or something like that?
Didn't sound like something I'd say.
Yeah, the one who stops us getting cancelled. I feel like you trying to rob viewers from their textbook resales is a bit shonky, to be honest. So we'll have to.
Whoa! Who said? I'm not charging them anything to give their textbooks away. I'm being kind.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Look, let me have a chat with James because I'm not comfortable with this. Sorry to rain on your parade there, mate.
You know what they say? Don't fight in front of the kids. Let's not make this an argument between me and you.
Point. Well, that kind of leads me nicely on to what would usually be a joke, but today it's something slightly different. It's a little cheeky little fiddle riddle. So, what gets wetter the more it dries?
Huh?
What gets wetter the more it dries? Well, I would find this a hard question if I hadn't heard it about 20 times before.
Oh, right.
So I'm going to be all smarmy and cocky, and I'm going to say it is a towel.
I'm stronger. I'm smarter. I'm better.
Yep. There's also one about what goes around the world but stays in a corner.
Oh, yeah. Stamp.
So I dropped my headphones as you said that. Didn't hear anything you said.
Oh, I said stamp, mate.
Incorrect. It's a postage stamp. I needed you to be specific there. No half marks awarded.
I thought you said we're not making this personal, and now you're getting all emotional about it.
Well, you must be a bigger man than me. Mentally.
Oh dear. Oh, I'm going to stick with the joke next time, I think. Here's the joke I did have lined up. What's a pirate's favourite letter? So
Z.
you probably think it's R, but it be the C.
So is the correct answer B or C or R then? I'm a bit confused.
C. Probably think it's R, but it be the C. I don't know why he's a Bristolian pirate, but there we go. So what's today's topic then, mate?
Today's topic is stakeholders. Do we make it more specific than that? Or we just go with stakeholders?
Cheeky little T-bone stakeholders. I think we should be a little bit more specific, or maybe we should make listeners wait until the end to find out how non-specific we're going to be.
Ooh, a bit of a little tease. I like the idea of that. A little tease, listener tease.
Yeah, I mean, all I'd say is, look, stakeholders, big part of procurement, and to be honest, probably most professions, and it will 100% come up in levels 4, levels 5, level 6, and your day-to-day jobs. So really, really important, and make sure you stay tuned, because it's going to be one hell of a ride. Okay, what is a stakeholder? Luke 10.
I would say it's someone who has in a procurement terms, it would be someone who has like an interest in who you award the contract to, or the kind of outcome of your procurement activities. In life, it might be, family members, friends. If you're dropping riz on some people in the street, then your husband/wife may not be too happy. They're stakeholders, but that's what I feel like a lot of stakeholder relations is about. It's just about that kind of riz factor.
What's a good stakeholder management requires absolute riz.
Oh yeah. If you've got the riz, well, I'm not saying I have. I think I have probably negative riz, to be honest. But if I had the riz, I think I'd be better at the job.
That's interesting. I mean, you kind of got there, because a stakeholder absolutely is anyone who is interested in, the project you are procuring, where you're kind of going and what you're doing. But actually, oddly enough, it's not always people who are interested. Sometimes it's people
could be dogs as well.
Good one. Right. No, it could also be people who have power to influence your project. They might not necessarily be interested in it. Right. So, good example of that is even in politics, right? I know we don't talk about politics on this show, but anytime we
talk about politics a lot for people who say we don't talk about politics on this.
Yeah, we do, don't we? Yeah. I mean, look, anytime a new prime minister gets voted in, the monarch, the now king, has the ability to effectively either accept that individual or reject them. Now,
interesting.
The Queen doesn't exercise her power to reject. You've never seen it happen before, right? But that's not the King. But we've not seen that happen. But that's not to say they don't have that power. So you've got to be mindful that sometimes actually someone might have more power than you think, regardless of whether they look interested in the outcome or not.
Yeah. So there could be people that aren't really interested in the outcome, but have power.
Yeah.
In whether you get the job or you put the contract in place or what.
Yeah, and some people might decide to wake up and get involved one day because they're kind of frustrated that you haven't involved them, and then actually they've got the power to kind of influence your ability to deliver your project. So that's why understanding your stakeholders is crucial, because it's not always just the obvious ones, i.e. those that are kind of coming up to you and showing interest.
So what is a stakeholder in terms of a business? Kind of give me an example that I could put into my bank.
Well, before we get into your bank, I think it's important to know or to understand the 3 different types of stakeholders. So once we understand that, then we can give you an example of each one to get right into your bank.
Like it?
Yeah. So the first type of stakeholder is probably the one that most people are familiar with. That is internal stakeholders. So effectively anyone within your own organisation, within your procurement relationship, anyone who supports you to deliver that work. So examples, as a procurement professional, it might be your company's lawyer. They might be providing you advice on contracts. It could be your finance manager. So they're kind of making sure that the purchase you are doing is authorised and within budget. Could be the director. They might have sort of a vested interest in the project or power to influence it. Does that kind of sound sensible?
What about someone who's in like a, I don't know, say you're buying some software, the person who is going to be the boots on the ground using the software?
Yep. They will be an internal stakeholder. In your company, yep, that'd be another internal stakeholder. And actually they would be, quite important to engage, because you'd want to make sure that the software is fit for purpose for them. That's why we do things like user acceptance testing. The second type, that was internal stakeholders, the first type. The second type is what we call connected stakeholders.
Connected stakeholders.
Connected, yeah.
Is it when all the stakeholders line up in a row, hold hands, and pray for the procurement to go well, because that's the best chance of something good happening?
I feel like your SIPS journey might be a long and painful one.
You've only started thinking that now?
Yeah, I don't know why it's taken me how many episodes. So a connected stakeholder is actually someone who is connected to you via the contract, or connected to you or the company you're representing via a contract or commercial relationship. So the suppliers that you are engaging, the software company that you are buying from, any subcontractors that are helping you to deliver a particular project. If your company didn't have an internal lawyer and you had to go to an external law firm, they would be a connected stakeholder, because they are your stakeholder through a contract. You may or may not hold hands with them.
Depends if it's in the contract or not.
Yeah. And then the third one, final one, is external stakeholders. This is where it gets a bit confusing, right? Because an external stakeholder is actually an individual or group or person that does not have a contracted or commercial relationship with you as a company, but they might have a vested interest or they might be affected by the kind of decisions that you are making.
So like a client? No, that wouldn't make sense. Someone, well, I'm trying to think of an example. That's quite a difficult one to think of an example for, because say like customers. So I don't know if you started changing the formula of Mars bars. The customers are they the connected stakeholders, or would that be an external example?
Well, you'd probably use a pilot sample to make sure that they like it, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But yeah, there would be a number of people that are external stakeholders in that instance. What I like to think is things like regulatory bodies, or like a parents teacher association, where all the parents gather at the school to kind of provide feedback on things that are happening. Another example might be HS2, so obviously building that massive long railway line through the middle of the country, and there are a huge amount of external stakeholders. So they are individuals or villages or towns that have just been split open to have the railways going through them. So let's say I'm on, I don't know, like, was it Country File UK, something like that, and I've got an interest in preserving wildlife in the UK. I might be an external stakeholder to the HS2 project, because I'm not under contract with HS2. Actually, the whole HS2 team could, in theory, ignore me completely. However, because we have a deep interest, there needs to be some level of communication or keeping them informed.
Would you then become a connected stakeholder if, say, it passed through your town and it was going to be what you were using to get to work every day? Or would that still
So-
be an external?
The connected stakeholders are basically those that have the contracted or commercial relationship. So if you decide to use that, you're entering into a contract to use the service that is now there for you.
Yeah.
But you're an external stakeholder at the point of the building taking place and whether you want to have it there or not. That, do you reject it or do you accept it? And quite often you do see, little villages that have signs up that say, "Don't ruin our town by building a motorway," or something like that, or "Don't expand Heathrow," things like that. Luckily enough, I've actually written down some examples for this.
Okay, nice.
So,
Let's see where this goes.
and I'm talking procurement examples here. Okay, so we'll
Not
go back.
barbershop.
No, not barbershop. I'm trying to forget that episode, to be honest. Internal stakeholders. So someone who's sponsoring the project, the wider procurement team, the head of procurement, the board of management, the chief executive or director, the customers, like you said, the internal departments who might be your customers, finance, internal legal, things like that. Connected
with you still.
stakeholders.
So I'm with you still.
Thank you. Connected stakeholders. So quite often suppliers who might be bidding on the work, the supplier who actually wins the contract, and external customers who might be affected by the results of the project. External stakeholders, pretty much local communities and society, like the wider society. As an example, if a project has an environmental impact, then it might include environmental regulators. Those are the kind of examples I wrote down.
No, I like that. That's clear. So for example, if it was, I don't know, what could it be? If it was a contract for delivery of, I don't know, what should we say? Delivery of something. So the
Air
people
Force
that
Ones.
what the plane,
Air Force Ones, they're shoes, mate.
they're planes as well. Weren't they planes before they were shoes?
They were shoes before they were planes.
What, the plane's named after the shoe, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Nike have just decided that they want to put the contract for delivery of Air Force Ones out for tender,
Yes.
and I have a bulk order of 10 Air Force Ones. I would be a connected stakeholder because I have a contract with Nike for them to deliver me the shoes at some point.
Yes, but probably no, actually, because the time it's going to take Nike to deliver 10 units of shoes will probably be a lot sooner than the tender being issued and run and completed.
So by that
If you
time, I would
were-
have gone back to being a external stakeholder.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
If you were interested in it. However, if you were, I don't know, running Luke 10's Minimart and you were flogging the Air Force Ones, you had a delivery coming in once a month, and there was then a tender to go out and procure a new supplier for delivery of these, you might be asked by Nike to come and give them some sort of advice or consultancy as to what might improve your experience as someone who receives the deliveries, potentially.
That makes sense to me.
Good. So I think, and kind of stakeholders said, is a massive topic. Why do you think it's an important subject?
For me, I've always found that stakeholder engagement is massive, especially in business procurement, or even just buying things from shops. I think that the kind of nicer you are to people, or the more kind of open and involved they feel in the process, generally the better the process runs as a whole. So say, for example, you've got you go into Sainsbury's. Justine is working there as a person who stocks the shelves, and the product that you want is not on the shelf. So you go and ask Justine for, what should we buy? Peanuts.
Yep.
We want some chocolate covered peanuts, but unfortunately on the shelf we can only find chili peanuts.
Disaster.
So if we go and ask Justine and we say, Justine, first of all, you stink. Second of all, I hate Sainsbury's. Third of all, your job's awful, and I'm going to be moody to you.
Chocolate nuts, you slag. Oi, Justine, you old slag, get me some chocolate nuts. Something like that, yeah.
If he goes, that came out of nowhere, fucking hell. If you were rude to Justine, bless her,
yeah.
she's only doing this to top up the pension. She doesn't care. She's gonna say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any of them. Whereas if you're like, oh, would you be able to tell me where the chocolate covered peanuts are? I'm so sorry to disturb your day, Justine, you beautiful specimen.
I've got a great example for that. Justine, my beautiful princess, it appears that the only chocolate nuts in this store are my own. Can you double check to make sure that is indeed the fact?
Why has this episode just gone completely random? I don't even know what word to use.
You said stakeholder management involves some, a little bit of riz, and that's my -1 riz going on.
That is your best. Is that how you pulled your missus with that line?
Yeah, she didn't work in Sainsbury's. I'm not sure she's a fan of nuts either, to be honest. Peanuts.
Ooh. Where were we? So I was trying to say that involving people in the process, say if I then convert that to a business context, say for example you need to write a specification. If you've been all moody and you've not been kind of taking that time with your regular stakeholders just to check in with them and make sure everything's all right from the last procurement, if you then go to them and say, oh, I need the specification written in 24 hours, then they're going to be less likely to do it, less motivated to work for you. And I think you probably just get, on a kind of maybe a non-procurement note, you just get a bit more of a kind of enjoyment from your job if you kind of less, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say you get more enjoyment from your job when you're nicer to people. I think it kind of, what you give off reflects back.
I think being a procurement professional, we're quite often involved in decision making, but we're not necessarily the decision maker. It's normally a collaboration of a few people, subject matter experts and finance and legal and whatever. So how we get on with each of those stakeholders might affect how smoothly our procurement is run. And actually, that doesn't just apply in situations where you're managing other departments. I say managing because you're not strictly their manager, but you have to kind of manage the relationship to get an outcome that is suitable for the business. But also, in a way, you're kind of managing up the chain. So people that are directors or CEOs or might have a vested interest, and actually how you report into them will be extremely different to how you speak to Justine, for example.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's probably quite a hard one to describe because it's not really measurable. Like you can't say, if I say hi to the receptionist 5 times a week, she's going to open the door and not make me stand out in the rain for 5 minutes less every day. It's not measurable like that, but it's kind of those soft skills that you need to be a good procurement professional.
Well, yeah, probably a good professional in any role. And what I find interesting is actually the external stakeholders the most, because more often than not, we become focused on internal, because let's face it, we speak to those people more than the other type of stakeholders because they're in our own company. We might see them in the office. regular calls or socials and all of that good stuff. You've then got the connected stakeholders who we talk to on the basis that actually we're dangling a contract in front of them, or they're dangling a contract in front of us. So there's always that relationship naturally forming, potentially hidden motives from both parties, i.e. maximise profit or trying to secure the deal to get good reputation, things like that. So that relationship kind of also naturally develops just by way of having an opportunity there. However, the external one can actually very much go under the radar. If you're not conscious around what third parties you might be impacting with your project, how or why you might be impacting them, it could come back to bite you in the backside massively. Think about moving a factory from London to India to save money for your costs. Actually, you might cause damage to the local economy by destroying the factory, or by shutting down the factory, cause unemployment, that sort of knock-on effect that doesn't necessarily always get considered.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's kind of why we talk about often the triple bottom line. Reference back to another episode that we did. Hopefully that's published by now.
Well, it better be, yeah. It's definitely on the published list if it's not published already, but check it out because that's a very, very, very hot topic.
And when you were talking about that, it made me think that we should do an episode on types of relationship. So you've got the contractual and the other ones, but
consensual.
Maybe let's link to that one as well. We'll do a future link to an episode that may or may not be coming out.
No, sounds good. I think the other thing as well, on external stakeholders, actually it's a lot more prevalent, or there's a much bigger awareness of it in public sector procurement. Because in public sector procurement, you have to be conscious of all of the knock-on effects. Any changes to your budgeting, any changes to where you're spending the money, could trigger groups that are interested but not party to the contract.
Is that often because public sector are providing citizen-related services?
Yeah. So things like even street lighting, right? That's going to impact people that don't have a say in what the government is doing, other than having the vote. So yeah, that's definitely a massive reason why. And whereas in obviously private sector, it's a lot more profit driven, or at least motivated by different things. So the external stakeholders probably don't get as much recognition as they should.
And we've come this far into the episode and not said the M word. So shall we finally stop the tease and say the M word?
Yeah, go on then. Mendelow's matrix is
two M's.
Two M's, yeah, a double M word. It's one model of a few that are literally consistently used throughout SIPs, throughout the procurement journey. It's an ongoing, it's a constant, kind of a staple. So having looked at what a stakeholder is, the three different main types of stakeholders, and kind of run through examples in a procurement profession, we thought we'll treat you to a Mendeley matrix special, which covers everything in one episode, to take you forward on how you apply that model to your stakeholder engagement.
So all that's left to say on this episode is send this to someone if their name is, what was it, Justine, and send this to someone if their name is Justine, or send this to someone if you like chocolate covered peanuts. That's not even a good one.
Oh well, it will do. I'm sure there's lots of Justines out there that could do with a bit of us calling them a slag. And on that note, I guess we'll see you on the next one.
See you later.
See ya.